Hey guys, welcome back to the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad. We are taking a look at the fourth in a series of videos here on layout, design, and construction. And today I promised that I would give you guys a track plan for what I'm doing. And I must apologize, I have some disappointment as I was doing show prep here that my track plan is not even to the level of chicken scratches. I have benchwork plan, but I don't have track plan for anything other than the staging level here on the layout. Um, if you guys want, I will in the description below place a link to the original video that I did describing where I'm modeling and all the basic geographic area. But to review, we'll take a look at the state railroad map and in South Dakota here the maximum railroad map, and we'll get an idea at a very high level where we're at. Beth, if you would, before we get into that, cue that canned intro that we do sometimes. And here we are taking a look at a publication that the state put out probably in the early to mid 80s of the railroads in the area. This is the maximum map. Now keep in mind of all the track that was ever in existence in the state of South Dakota. Starting with the southeast corner of the state here where we're modeling the Corson subdivision off of the Garrettson, the Marshall subdivision. So Marshall subdivision comes out of Sioux City, Iowa, goes north through Iowa, comes into Minnesota, and then dips into South Dakota for a few miles uh, after having passed through Garrettson, and then passes out back into Minnesota. We've got the Corson subdivision that comes in out of Garrettson to Sioux Falls. We're modeling that, and then we're modeling the line up to Renner and ultimately Dell Rapids. That's operated as the Dakota and Iowa Railroad, or the D&I Railroad now. It used to be a Milwaukee Railroad track back in the day. Then we skip over to our other location and we take a look at the Deadwood branch of the Burlington Northern CB&Q formerly. It comes out at Edgemont. I'm going to move myself over here a little bit so you can see. So we're coming out of Edgemont and continuing up through Hill City. There is a branch to Keystone. There still is a branch to Keystone, and that is operated by Black Hill Central Railroad. That is a steam-powered tourist operation that's still going out there. It's a really neat little thing. You should go check it out if you ever have a chance. The line over to Hot Springs was taken out also when the High Line was taken out. And of course, we get up to Lead and Deadwood, South Dakota, and that's essentially the big thrust of what we're modeling or will be modeling on the top deck of the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad. So there you have it. There's the namesake of our railroad. So the South Dakota Black Hills, a beautiful area. If you haven't seen it before, I urge you to take a look. Lots of fun things to do out there, history, nature, all that type of thing. So Black Hills, South Dakota Black Hills, essentially in this area here, and then eastern, the southeastern side of the state where I reside. So that's what we're doing. Then I'm going to take a look over at a quick look at the schematic, and essentially, so for the staging level and for the scenery areas on the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad. Essentially, this top line here is staging, hidden staging, with the exception of the line that comes, or the Sioux City Yard. I show that quite a bit in different operations videos and things like that here on the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad channel. And then the Sioux City Yard, C&W Sioux City Yard, that's going to be also hidden staging. You guys that are operators and like the yardmaster job, that's going to be the big job here. The Sioux City yardmaster job is going to be probably the most important job, probably besides the dispatcher here on this railroad when we finally get going, whenever that's going to be. The scenery areas will continue or will begin on the with Garrettson here, where the Marshall sub splits off to the Corson subdivision. That's where our scenery will begin on the main level. Garrettson over to Corson, Sioux Falls, and then there'll be a bunch of industrial switching at Corson and some industrial switching at Sioux Falls and some at Corson. And then back into staging here with the Madison subdivision, Madison, South Dakota, and the Dell Rapids the D&I line, and there will be some switching over there too, and we'll pull out rock trains and stuff. We'll go south through Sioux Falls and access Sioux City. Then the track schematic, the chicken scratches that I noted earlier. Of course, we start out here with the helix to Deadwood. The Whitewood staging here, we have in front of there now Marshall, Minnesota staging, 2 tracks of that, and I believe there's 4 tracks at Whitewood. In Whitewood, South Dakota will serve the D&I Railroad, Dakota, Minnesota, and Eastern. This line on the outside here is the line to Dell Rapids from Sioux Falls. And then, of course, this is represents the southern edge of the Sioux City, Iowa yard, the Burlington Northern yard. Moving on, this is the basic schematic that I use to explain here what I'm doing. On all of these to follow, you'll see this helix here. This is depending on, no matter which level you're on, you're going to see that. And then this broken line here is partition wall, floor to ceiling, and then a couple of support columns. Those support columns are non-functional, but I didn't want to put them in there in order to help support the layout and curves as they go around, turning back around and navigating around the room here. Some more detail on the staging level. And I should bring that in just a little bit so you guys can see it. Sioux City down here, a yard lead, and then this broken line here is the line up to Garrettson. So that's a no-licks type ramp, a very gentle ramp. I think it's like a 1.5% or maybe not even that much to access Garrettson. And then this dotted line continues around as the Corson subdivision around. And the rest of these unbroken lines are lines around staging. You've got Madison subdivision staging over here, and then Dell Rapids with D&I Railroad up here in the. I didn't draw that very well on the benchwork diagram, but that is going to be there over there to service the D&I Railroad. Then we've got here I'll move myself again. The staging level, so this is a little bit more detail. The ramp up to Garrettson here, so this is representing more of the BNS Burlington Northern Marshall subdivision. So this is keeping in mind this is the staging level going up a ramp track, 3/4 of a turn of a helix to Garrettson, and then this track will continue around and access Island, Minnesota. There's a siding there, and then finally Marshall, Minnesota, which is our main hidden staging. Now we are at the main level on the Black Hills and Eastern HO scale model railroad. And I wanted to note here that we've got the helix in here again. There's no interaction from the main level here. That does not tie in with the helix, it just goes around it. So we've got the North Sioux Falls industrial area. If those of you familiar with the Sioux Falls area, the air base and the industrial park up on the north end of town, essentially what you drive through Minnesota Avenue, north of Russell Street, if you will. Sioux Falls proper, the yard. Brandon, South Dakota. BN never had any business in Brandon that I know of, and I'm not sure why I even put that there. I'll probably want a little bit of negative space in that area. Probably will forego modeling anything with Brandon. Corson, South Dakota, the rail car outfit, rail car repair outfit over there. And then I've got a note here that 3/4 turn helix down to Island, Minnesota, off of the Marshall subdivision. So, and then over here to Garrettson, and again, so that will go down to staging at the on the northern end of the Sioux City, the Burlington Northern Sioux City yard. So then the thing everybody's been waiting for, I'll move myself out of the way here again, and we want the Deadwood branch, and this is just a schematic of that. So in fact, most of this is scenic area or planned scenic area. The only one that's not, as I mentioned before, Whitewood, South Dakota, serving the D&I. There'll be a trip up the helix to access Deadwood, and then the staging over at Edgemont staging, we're calling that the Burlington Northern Black Hills subdivision to access basically the coal traffic out of Wyoming. and maybe some other traffic that we're going to either products off of the High Line or products bound for the High Line. And then, of course, all of your locations on the High Line itself, and I'll get into this in a little bit more detail, but this is what I plan to do here on the railroad. This is how it lays out over the benchwork plan. Again, the staging, the into the shop, 3 or 4 tracks perhaps in the shop, wide in Black Hills subdivision staging, Edgemont coming around the corner here, Pringle, maybe some industrial switching there in Hill City, definitely some industrial switching. And I did want to leave some negative space here. I think that my wife and I both agree that on one thing for sure, that we like to see nature, and I'd like to see railroads that at least have some open space with them where there aren't any man-made or human touched elements. So the trees and the rocks and stuff will be open areas will be vastly appreciated here. But Hill City, we plan to plant a brewery there. I know there never was a brewery, but to make it interesting for operators and a little bit more of a challenge, and just for the fun of it, we're going to imagine that there was one there. A couple of tunnels here coming through Rochford, Dumont, the highest part of the line. I'll get to that here after a bit. And then at some point, we'll put in here the fantail switch and the access to Lead, South Dakota, and then, of course, downtown Deadwood itself, and then back to the Helix and down to the DM&E for interchange. Then a quick map. This is out of the 1970, 76, 77 annual, Burlington Northern annual. This shows the High Line and the couple of spurs out to Hot Springs and Keystone. The Keystone branch is still in existence. And I wanted to note the Keystone branch is in existence and operated by as the Black Hills Central. It's a steam-powered tourist railroad today. Seriously, go check that out if you ever have a chance, and if you've never been in the South Dakota Black Hills, you need to avail yourself of the opportunity if you ever have one. And then I mentioned Dumont earlier, and so at 6,420 feet is the highest point on the Burlington Northern proper. If anybody knows or anybody can tell me, put in the comments below, please, if you know why the climax branch in Colorado was not the highest point on the Burlington Northern proper. Fill me in on that. That's just a little bit of trivia, and I know it's maybe pointless trivia, but wanted to see if anybody's in tune enough with the Burlington Northern history to be able to tell that. Here's a state railroad map of the Mickelson Trail, which is what the High Line became eventually. And then this is really what got me fired up looking at this the other night again. Juice is turning for operations in the pine trees with the Burlington Northern between, and this is the Lead Deadwood metro area here, and Edgemont. This is the rest of the High Line down to Edgemont, of course. Yates Yard. This would represent a facing point move here for the coal dump itself, and then the switch at Kirk, and then of course down here, and you can't see this very well, this is sort of off the page, off the scan. This is actually a switchback here. So the engine would pull up, pull cars, and then has to shove up to Lead, South Dakota. And there is a couple of places to run around up here. This is fascinating to me. This kind of stuff. This is if you guys have ever operated at like Jeff Autos in the Twin Cities, his C&W railroad, he's got a logging job that I've run at least once. You go off by yourself and you don't bother anybody. Nobody bothers you. You get your work done and you come back. That's what this job is going to be, and I can't wait to run it, quite honestly. Burr Stewart has got another one out on his Seattle-based Burlington Northern Railroad. He's got the jet job that comes out of Seattle and works the Boeing plant. Yeah, I've never run that railroad. I would love to at some point, and that's the job that I would pick if I ever landed with him. So I guess I wanted to state that I've always been in love with mountain railroading, no matter where it is, whether it's Colorado, South Dakota, or even out in the Appalachians out east from us here. Really, I think that was spurred, mostly the interest in the High Line here was spurred by a Rick Mills book that I'd had access to as a youth. And it was spurred on then by a bike trip that Brother Eric and I took over the Mickelson Trail several years back, actually, probably more than 10 years ago now, where we rode. The state GF&P provides support for a ride. You register for it, and they provide support. They provide transportation, technical support, and some meals along the line. And so you ride it in 3 days, and this, of course, cemented. This took care of any doubt that I had that I wanted to model this line. So, and then having seen the documentation provided in that 76, 77 annual that I referenced earlier, only made the bug bite harder. So that's what we're planning to do, and I wanted to give you a few notes here regarding my thoughts on track planning and things. And obviously, there's an elephant in the room that we've got to get to here. But before I do that, I wanted to mention the Fun with Selective Compression video that I did that came to mind here as I was doing show prep, and I'll link to that in the description below as well. But just some notes about that. 5,280 feet in a mile. So divide that by 87 to get your actual feet in HO scale. That's 61 feet. Modern grain train is assuming 50-foot cars. We're going to be at, so assuming, 50-foot cars, we're going to be at 62.7 feet without engines. So who among my watchers here, who among my viewers has got space for that? Even I don't. And then when we take a look at even doing something compressed as the lead Deadwood metro area, I don't have space for this. So we're, as the Minnesota guys say, we're going to have to use some selective omission in order to get all this in, and we're going to have to do some creative geography bending and some things like that in order to get this, to make this work. And I have a plan for that, and I think it's going to be workable, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun when it gets done, or at least when we get to operate it. It's probably never going to be done, but we all know about that, right? And one of my main objectives in building this layout was to showcase the beauty of southeastern South Dakota and the South Dakota Black Hills. There are a lot of beautiful places here. The prairie is beautiful, the hills, the pine trees, the ponderosa pines, and the Black Hill spruce. And the rocks, the outcroppings, all that type of thing. I think my wife would really agree that if there's an objective here, that we'd showcase some of that natural beauty and space untouched by human hands, maybe save for a pair of rails going through a scene. So we're going to be wanting to do that, and that's going to be important. So then, to address the elephant in the room here, which is track planning software, clearly that's needed. I've been able to get by pretty easily with just, like I said before, playing fast and loose, and with that Homosote is pretty forgiving as far as being able to put a track nail in and take it out without much problem. That's gotten me by so far in staging, but I don't expect to be able to do that when we're getting into scenery areas that require space for real industries and things like that. So where am I going to go with this? I've got sort of four candidates in mind here. Atlas has got a package. Is it Right Track they call that? That I'm guessing that the only components you can use in there is Atlas switches, which probably doesn't bother me because I'm trying to standardize on those anyway. But if I'd ever need to use a Walther Shinohara switch, I wouldn't want to be able to do that. Any rail is one I've heard from one of you guys, maybe a couple of you guys that are using any rail out there. That looks like probably the package that I want to go for, and I probably would want to pay for the paid version, being that we're going to get pretty extensive here on the track planning. A buddy of mine, he's an electrical engineer, uses Third Planet, or at least used to anyway. That's a much more CAD-ish type package, which I've never touched CAD before. I've picked up a lot of softwares. I'm self-trained on quite a few different graphics type packages and video editing software, CRMs, things like that. I'm not afraid to pick up a new package, but if there's going to be a major investment involved, I'd probably rather use that time building a layout rather than sitting learning CAD or something like that. And then there's another one. This looks like a European package, SCARM, SCARM. I'm not sure about that one. Never heard much about it. Just know that it's out there. Happen to be aware of it. So if you would maybe help me out and let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on track planning software. If you've got any specific experience with any of these, ones to avoid, ones to go to. I'm kind of thinking at this point that any rail might be the one, but and we'll see. Anyway, this is where we have reached the point that we need to pull the pin, and I hope you have enjoyed the content here. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.